So Kratos' Norse arc has finally come to an end, and even though it was a great game, I can't help but think about that disappointing feeling in my mouth. I mean, it's crazy, right? How can you complain about a series that has a great story, tight cutscenes for each and every weapon and enemy, a free DLC that's actually fun, and most of all, a studio that voluntarily delayed their game to make it better?
What did I do to you? Did I hurt you in some way?
Well, here's the thing. I love God of War's story. I really do. Kratos' journey into the Norse world has been nothing short of epic. From a god of war to a father of wisdom, his transformation has been a masterclass in character development. And it's not just about Kratos. The new God of War has a cast of complex characters that play their own roles in this interconnected family feud of war and destruction. The brotherly love and the foolish mistakes that Sindri and Brock make to each other, the consequences of Freya's overprotective love, Atreus' quest to overcome prophecy, and so on, are all engaging elements to the overarching story. Everything about it balances the fine line between mythology and reinterpretation to create one hell of a unique story.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
And you know what they say, with good characters in a good setting, the characters take control of the story. It's such a nice change to see decent character development instead of brain-dead characters that say the same line 100 times. We've seen our fair share of AAA games that look like a piece of art and play like a piece of shit. And listen, unless you're Hideo Kojima, you don't like running around in games, because usually it's a scheme to artificially extend playtime. But God of War uses this opportunity to help expand your knowledge of the Norse world and the behind-the-scenes story of the characters in this world. Those little chats between Kratos and Mimir are actually pretty interesting. And don't forget how amazing the action is. It is a God of War game after all. The seamless blend of cutscenes and gameplay are absolutely gorgeous. And you know how great generals have their own secret weapon? You know, like King Arthur's Excalibur, Athena's shield, Link's Master Sword, or even Truman's new— Okay, let's stop there.
Are you insane?
Anyway, Kratos ends up with 3 signature weapons. So simple math shows that Kratos is 3 times more badass than everyone else.
Huh?
And thanks to these 3 weapons, we get to see 3 different kill cutscenes for each and every enemy to spice up that gore element. But as much as I love the story, I was really disappointed with some of the enemies. God of War is a game that sets sky-high expectations and manages to nail most of them. So even the slightest inconvenience stands out much stronger than it should. Kinda like finding a typo in a masterpiece. It doesn't ruin the game, but it distracts you just enough so that you realize you're, unfortunately, not in Asgard, but in your chair at home. So, the problem. You see, I just feel like there are too many reskins and copied animations throughout the series. I mean, I can kinda understand reusing a ton of assets in the sequel. It does happen in the same world after all, but reusing enemies like nightmares a bunch of times? That was pushing it a bit too far for me. Yeah, maybe 4 years wasn't enough to animate kill cutscenes for like 100 new enemies, but still, you can't help but notice things if they start to appear a bit too often. One of the biggest disappointments for me specifically was a Cyclops. Man, I was so excited to see a beast from Greek mythology in the new games. But that excitement quickly turned into disappointment as I quickly realized that the Cyclops was awfully familiar. And for a new enemy, it sure was easy to beat. I later found out that almost all the attack animations for the Cyclops were exactly the same as the ones used for the ogre guys. They're ogres, right? Anyway, you can see what my problem is, right? The game builds up all this hype by talking about Kratos revisiting his past, trying to redeem himself, and then you realize that the enemies are just a reskin. Come on, you can't do that to us. And I know I'm being harsh. Valhalla is a free DLC after all. And if some indie roguelike game pulled this stunt, I probably wouldn't even have cared.
I know what you've done, and I forgive you.
And I can already hear the comments furiously saying things in God of War's defense, saying there are a ton of reused enemies in other great games, like those dog statues in Elden Ring, or those drunkards from Sekiro. But here's the thing. Those bosses don't have any significance in the story. They're just random field bosses that you don't even have to fight. But the Cyclops? And I know I'm being a bit too harsh, so I want to clear things up and say that where God of War did lack in enemies, they absolutely nailed the boss cutscenes. Take the first Thor battle in Ragnarok, which, by the way, is absolutely badass. I literally got goosebumps when I saw the hammer electric shock, but not just because of how well the scene was produced. It reflected how cruel a God of War could be, the nasty aspect that Kratos had left behind and that Thor hadn't.
You think you can come here, become a daddy, get a clean slate? That ain't how it works. You're a destroyer, like me.
And that element keeps coming into play through Atreus' story, as he reveals Thor's soft side, and the pressure that he's been under as Odin's son. In fact, come to think of it, Thor's redemption is actually a team effort from Kratos and Atreus, so good job to them. And again, for the love of Kratos, I don't want to say God of War was a bad game, because it isn't. But at the same time, that single glaring disappointment feels like having a near-perfect relationship being marred by a minor but persistent problem. Not a deal breaker, but something that lingers in your thoughts all the time. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
I see it.